स्थापितं येन रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमां विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरद्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा. So welcome to our Bhagavad Gita Bhakti Shastri course, Bhagavad Gita. So we are in chapter 17, the last part of it. So we discussed last time how the Yajna, Dana and Tapa and Ahara are explained in 3 modes. And now we will see the last part which Krishna is giving here as a part of conclusion. How it has to be connected with the Supreme. So let me share the screen. So you are all able to see this?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So this last part, we can see that there are these 4 kinds of people. One who are always faithless. Second are those who are having non-scriptural faith. Third is those who are having scriptural faith. And then the 4th one are those with transcendental faith. So we see that in human society, whatever scriptures are mentioning, that is nothing but for elevation of the consciousness of the people in this world. So from faithless to transcendental faith is the journey which the conditioned soul has to travel, and whichever platform he is, he can rise above. So that is the system. So we have to understand that this is a or rather remember that this is a Jnana section, and that's why we see that Krishna is offering some solution now based on that which will be accepted and appreciated by those who are of Jnani tendency. So what is it that we will see now? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Tat Sat Iti Nirdesho.
Om Tat Sat Iti Nirdesho.
Brahmanas Trividha Smritah.
Brahmanas Trividha Smritah.
Brahmanastena Vedascha.
Brahmanasthena
Brahmanasthena
vedascha
vedascha
Yajnascha vihita pura.
yajnascha
yajnascha
vihitascha.
vihita pura.
Translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. From the beginning of creation, the three words Om Tat Sat were used to indicate the supreme absolute truth. These three symbolic representations were used by Brahmanas while chanting the hymns of the Vedas and during sacrifices for the satisfaction of the supreme.
Yes. So here we see that there are two similar words. In this first line, the Brahmanas. Brahmanas is the word, and in the second line, Brahmanas is the word. This first word, Brahmanas, is for referring to the Brahman. And then the second is referring to the Brahmanas who are chanting this. And as discussed just now, that Krishna is going to explain us how the person can gradually transcend, the three modes. So basically, by using these words Om Tat Sat, they are referring to the absolute truth. This is indirect reference to the absolute truth. Why? Because for some people, they don't want to know what is absolute truth, or they do not want to directly refer to the God or something like that. So then for them, this kind of reference is given, Om Tat Sat. So it is not something impersonal, but certainly it is non-personal. As we know that original Om is Krishna. Pranava Sarva Vedeshu, Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that among all the Vedic hymns, Om is I am the Om. So that is nothing but Krishna himself. But the people, they don't want to know, or they don't want directly, personal form of the Lord. So either they may not want it, or even if they know it, they are attached to the impersonal form. So in either case, they don't want the personal form of the Lord. But at least they know that something absolute has to be approached. So as we see that there are different types of names, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions the primary and secondary names of Krishna, like Yashoda Nandan, Yashoda Dulal, all these, or Nandanandan. All these are primary names of the Lord, which are directly indicating Krishna through his pastimes or something like that. Whereas secondary names are like Paramatma, Jagat Guru, Khilatma, which are in conjunction with the material world or functions of the material world. So they are secondary names, they are not the primary names. So similarly here, this Om Tat Sat, it is although a reference to the absolute truth, but it is a covered indication, means not directly indicating the Supreme Lord Krishna, but indirectly indicating that only. And we see that this word Om is quite common. Even in everyday we sing or recite Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, or the mantra which Ramanujacharya had received was Om Namo Narayanaya. So this word Om is always there in most of the cases. Srila Prabhupada in the further purport also mentions Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyantu Surya. That those demigods are those who are always looking at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So in this way, we can see that this is an indirect reference, but it is referring to the absolute truth. Let's see what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. Yes, somebody can read this.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. These three words are taken from Vedic hymns. Om iti etat brahmano nedishtham nama Rigveda indicates the first goal. Then Tattvamasi, Chandogya Upanishad 6.8.7 indicates the second goal. And Sad Eva Saumya, Chandogya Upanishad 6.2.1 indicates the third goal. Combined, they become Om Tat Sat.
Go ahead.
Bhagavad Gita recommends therefore, that any work done should be done for Om Tat Sat or for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one performs penance, charity, and sacrifice with these three words, he is acting in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is a scientific execution of transcendental activities which enables one to return home back to Godhead. There is no loss of energy in acting in such a transcendental way.
Yes. So the impersonalists or Mayavadis, when they read this Tattvam Asi, so here it is indicated Tat means that. That means which is not perceived here through the material senses. So that it is that. Tat is that, which is not perceived through the material senses. And that is something spiritual. So Tattvamasi means you are also spiritual. That is an understanding. But impersonalist and Mayavadis, they take it in other way. Tattvamasi to be that you are only that, spiritual being or the ultimate spiritual Brahman, like that. But actual thing is that we are in same quality as that of Brahman and not we are Brahman. And Sad Eva Saumya, Chandogya Upanishad indicates the third goal, which is the eternity, or we can also see that all the inclusion of all auspicious activities. So that is Sad. But what we can see that Krishna is in hinting towards chanting of the name, Om Tat Sat. So by that, Krishna is encouraging people to chant the holy name. Because we see that they are not ready to directly chant the name of Krishna or Rama or any other Vishnu form, which is so purifying. So then there is another way. It is like, we see that a mother who is wanting to offer a medicine, but the child is adamant and not want to eat the medicine. So then mother devises some means and ways by which the child will take the medicine. So similarly, Krishna is devising ways and means by which people in general would chant his name. And in the same way, in the same mood, we see that even Srila Prabhupada, following the footsteps of Lord Shri Krishna, or in his mood, carrying his mood, he would also encourage people to chant the name of the God. Whichever faith the person may be, Srila Prabhupada would always encourage them to follow their faith faithfully and properly. So that we have seen. Prabhupada would say, if you are Christian, then be a better Christian. If you are Islamic faith, then you better become a better Muslim. And we also see that when Srila Prabhupada himself was in Iran once, and while he was discussing with devotees over there, suddenly it was a time for namaz. So in the nearby mosque, the namaz prayer started on the loudspeaker. And when that began, Srila Prabhupada immediately closed his eyes and he looked very much absorbed in the prayer that was being sung. And after the prayer was over, Prabhupada opened his eyes and said, what a beautiful prayer it was. And some of the devotees, they were shocked that how can Prabhupada say something like this for this Islamic faith? And then they questioned in that way. And Prabhupada, in bit kind of not anger, but then expressing that, why are you making me sectarian? I have come here to inspire people to love and serve God in whichever way they can. That is immaterial. But what is important is to love and serve God. So that is what my vision is. So don't make me sectarian by thinking that I have come only to give Krishna, or make everyone Hindu or something like that. we have to focus on people glorifying God. Form may be different, but ultimate aim is to love and serve God. So that has to be understood. Yeah. So here we are. Okay. So now let's go to the next verse. Tasmad Om iti udarutya
Smartphone
Gana tapah kriyah
Yajna Gana Tapakriya
Pravartate vidhanukta
Pravartante Vidhanokta
Brahmavadinam.
Satatam Brahmavadina.
Translation, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Therefore, transcendentalists undertaking performances of sacrifice, charity, and penance in accordance with scriptural regulations begin always with Om to attain the Supreme. Hare Krishna.
Somebody can read the purport. Put it on the slide.
Purport from the book, Prabhuji?
Yes, from Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita.
Okay. Om Tad Vishnoho. Om Tad Vishnoho. Paramam Padam. Rigveda 1.2220. The lotus feet of Vishnu are the supreme devotional platform. The performance of everything on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead assures the perfection of all activity. Hare Krishna.
Basically, same thing has been explained here, that how this some great concern to this, while they perform or when they undertake this performance of sacrifice, charity, yajna, dana, and tapa, according to scriptural regulations. So this has to be very much clearly understood. That means this section which has been talked about is for those people who are accepting scriptural injunctions. We saw, if you remember, in the 17th chapter beginning, Arjuna has asked this question. What about that in 16th chapter you have explained those who follow the scriptures are divine, or scriptural injunctions, they are divine, and those who deny are demoniac. What about those people who do not follow scriptural injunctions but still have faith in something and they follow? So what about them? And then Krishna starts answering that how that faith is divided into three, Sattva, Raja, and Tama. And in that, specifically, if you see, in case of Sattva, he mentions that those who are following scriptures. So if you remember the verses of Yajna, Dana, and Tapa, if you go back and see, you will find that wherever Krishna has spoken about Sattva, that is sacrifice in Sattva Gun, or charity in Sattva Gun, and austerity in Sattva Gun, everywhere Krishna has mentioned according to Vedic scriptures or scriptural injunctions. Whereas the other two, that is the passionate and ignorance, has been rejected because they are abominable. And therefore, then in this final section, Krishna is stressing this fact again, that those who are following based on scriptural injunctions, they are supposed to execute yajna, dana, and tapa with scriptural injunctions and with chanting of Om Tat Sat. So to attain the Supreme. Yes. Next verse. Tad iti anabhisandhaya
Aditi Anabhisandhyaya
yajna tapakriyah
Palam Yajna Tapakriya
dana kriyashtra vividha te moksha kankshibhi.
Kriyante Mokshakankshibhi.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Let me read, Prabhu. Without desiring fruitive results, one should perform various kinds of sacrifice, penance, and charity with the word that. The purpose of such transcendental activities is to get free from material entanglement.
Can you please also read the purport? It is not put on the slide.
Sure, I'll read now. 1 second. Yeah, purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. To be elevated to the spiritual position, one should not act for any material gain. Acts should be performed for the ultimate gain of being transferred to the spiritual kingdom, back to home, back to Godhead. Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So abhisandhaya means without desiring phalam. There is not material gain. So again, the same thing which we see that has been repeated again and again, that this yajna, dana and tapa has to be performed according to Vedic scriptures or scriptural injunctions, and then it has to be done without desire for material gain. Kriyante moksha kankshibhi. So moksha kankshibhi means for getting free from material entanglement. So that is the purpose of performing these Vedic regulations. So now let's go to the next two verses. Sadbhave sadhubhave cha
Sadbhave sadhubhave cha
sad iti etat prayujyate
sadhite tatra yujyate
prashaste karmani tatha
prashaste karmani tatha
Shabda Partha Yujyate
yujyate
Yajne Tapasi Dane Cha
Yajne tapasi dane
dane
cha
cha
Saditi Uchotyate
sthiti saditi uchyate
chodhyate
Tatarthiyam
karma chaiva tadarthiyam
Artiyam
Tad Iti Eva Bhidiyate
saditi eva vidhiyate.
Yate.
Translation please.
Let me read, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Yeah. The absolute truth is the objective of devotional sacrifice, and it is indicated by the word Sat. The performer of such sacrifice is also called Sat, as are all works of sacrifice, penance, and charity, which, true to the absolute nature, are performed to please the Supreme Person, person of Pruta.
Yes. So we see that in other words also we can see we always have these three things: sambandha, abhidheya, and prayojan. So by chanting the word Om, the sambandha is established that this activity has to be performed unto the Supreme Lord or unto the Absolute Truth. And then that word indicates the abhidheya, and the process has to be performed. But how it has to be performed? Without material desire. And then the sat, that is the prayojan, that it is completely to be done for the as a keeping objective as the absolute truth or objective of devotional service. So that is a prayojan or the final goal. So in this way, Krishna is indicating performance of devotional service to the conditioned souls for getting emancipation forever, getting liberated from the three modes. Yes, read the purport mentioned in the slide.
Sure, Prabhu. The words Prashaste Karmani are prescribed duties, indicate that there are many activities prescribed in the Vedic literature which are purificatory processes, beginning from the time of conception up to the end of one's life. Such purificatory processes are adopted for the ultimate liberation of the living entity. In all such activities, it is recommended that one vibrate Om Tat Sat. The words Sadbhave and Sadhubhave indicate the transcendental situation acting in Krishna consciousness is called Sattva, and one who is fully conscious of the activities of Krishna consciousness is called a Sadhu. Hare Krishna.
Satam prasangan mamavirya samvito bhavan tirtkarna sa tajjoshana daswapavardhavati shasara purvate. So satam prasangat mamavirya samvito. Always one should be in association of sadhu, those who are Krishna conscious. Why? What is the result of that? So then only he will learn how to act in Krishna consciousness, and thereby he will always be in Krishna consciousness. So Sambandha, Abhidaya and Prayojan, if we see in context of our devotional service, so Sambandha is that we established the connection through Guru, who is the Supreme Lord Krishna, and what is our position of being a servant of the servant. And then the process is given of the ninefold devotional service, beginning with Shravanam and Kirtanam. And the end result of the Abhidaya is also ninefold devotional service. So like that. So Prashaste Karmani, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that there are so many prescribed duties, and that has to be utilized or adapted for what? Ultimate liberation of living entity. So this is very important. And that's why this vibration of Om Tat Sat is recommended in all kinds of prescribed duties. At the last part of this purport, Prabhupada used very nice understanding about the elevation of the living entity. Yes, please read this.
Sure, Babuji. When initiating a person or offering the sacred thread, one vibrates the word Om Tat Sat. Similarly, in all kinds of performance of yajna, the object is the Supreme, Om Tat Sat. The word Tadarthi, somebody please unmute this. The word Tadarthiyam further means offering service to anything which represents the Supreme, including such service as cooking and helping in the Lord's temple or any other kind of work for broadcasting the glories of the Lord. These supreme words Om Tat Sat are thus used in many ways to perfect all activities and make everything complete.
Yes. So we see at the last line of 27th verse it is mentioned. Karma chaiva tadarthiyam saditye abhidhiyate. So that karma chaiva tadarthiyam means while performing yajna dana tapa, there may be some other corollary activities like cooking, cleaning the temple of the Lord, and all of the things. So while everything, this has to be this has to be the understanding of Om Tat Sat. Now another point is that it is not just that one has to chant these words Om Tat Sat, but one has to have this understanding. While performing Yajna, Dana and Tapa, obviously there will be chanting of Om Tat Sat without any doubt. But beyond that, the real thing is that the performer has to understand what is this Om Tat Sat. That means whatever Yajna, Dana and Tapa he is performing, that he is doing ultimately for the Supreme Absolute Truth. And in a higher sense for Krishna, like that. So this is the word Tad Arthyam, meaning which Srila Prabhupada has given in the purport. Yes, going to the last verse of this chapter. Ashraddhaya hutam dattam
Ashraddhaya hutam dattam
taptam kritam chayat
tapastam chayat
asat iti uchyate partha
asat uchyate partha
pretyano iha.
nachatat
न
pretyano
च
iha.
तत्प्रेत्यनो इह
Hare Krishna. Anything done as a sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, O son of Pritha, is impermanent. It is called asat and is useless both in this life and in the next. Hare Krishna.
So anything done as a sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme. So this was a question of Arjuna. What is the gati of those, or the destination of those who have non-scriptural faith? Mhm. So Krishna is saying that it is impermanent, it is useless, both in this life and in next. So that means the faith has to be based on the scriptures, and it has to be in the Supreme. So here Krishna is indicating that already this explanation of the three modes has already been done, and it has been concluded that mode of goodness is superior to mode of ignorance and passion. Yet it is also contaminating. The mode of goodness is also contaminating, and that's why one should transcend even the mode of goodness. And for that purpose, those who are performing yajna, dana, and tapa in goodness, they are recommended that they should do with the understanding of Om Tat Sat. That means they are given an opportunity to connect themselves to the Supreme. So this is the understanding of this 17th chapter. And Srila Prabhupada very wonderfully gives a summary, which we will now read in the form of the purport. Please read.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. In the conditional state, people are attracted to worshipping demigods, ghosts, or yakshas like Kuvera. The mode of goodness is better than the modes of passion and ignorance, but one who takes directly to Krishna consciousness is transcendental to all three modes of material nature. Although there is a process of gradual elevation, if one, by the association of pure devotees, takes directly to Krishna consciousness, that is the best way. And that is recommended in this chapter. To achieve success in this way, one must first find the proper spiritual master and receive training under his direction. Then one can achieve faith in the Supreme. When that faith matures in course of time, it is called love of God. This love is the ultimate goal of the living entities. One should therefore take to Krishna consciousness directly. That is the message of this 17th chapter. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So when we understand this 17th chapter in this context, then we understand that actually it is mentioned about the gradual elevation, as Prabhupada is pointing out here. I don't know whether I can note anything. Yeah. Yeah. So although there is a process of gradual elevation, means what? This gradual elevation is the process in general given by Krishna for all conditioned souls. But if one, by the association of pure devotees, takes directly to Krishna consciousness, that is the best way. So it is great fortune upon all of us that we have been given this opportunity to associate with pure devotees and take directly to Krishna consciousness. So we have been offered the best way rather than going through the gradual elevation, which would take we don't know how many lifetimes. So what we have discussed till now, if we see that people are generally in the faithlessness situation, and most of the people in this world are in faithless situation. Very less are there who are having some faith which may be non-scriptural. And there are very few people who are actually following scriptural rules and regulations and also having faith in goodness. So we can see from this that actually how it is such a slow and gradual process for a conditioned soul to elevate from faithlessness to non-scriptural faith, then to scriptural faith, and then to transcendental faith, which may come if he does yajna dana tapa based on Om Tat Sat understanding. So such a long process is there, and such a gradual process is there. but it is our great fortune that we have been offered this, and it is now our responsibility. So now responsibility lies with each and every one of us, because we are offered this best path of such a fast progress, so that we take it with utmost sincerity and gravity or seriousness, so that we can actually benefit ourselves and then eventually so many of others who are in a similar situation as we were previously. So that is the sum and substance of this 17th chapter. So are there any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam, Prabhuji. Prabhuji,
Yes,
one small question. In the beginning of the chapter, Krishna talked about all the modes, Prabhuji, right? And the Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and different foods, modes, like, in terms of like charity. And suddenly topic changed to Om Tat Sat. So I was kind of like trying to understand how this relates to that, in terms of the chapter summary. And why Krishna is mentioning Om Tat Sat and all these syllables.
Yes, I mentioned it briefly. I'll repeat it. Like the beginning of the 17th chapter, Arjuna is asking the question about what about this middle category of people, and then Krishna starts answering with saying that the faith is also divided into three, and then he starts explaining how it is divided into three: Sattva, Raja, and Tama. And then in that he also told that we can also identify people who are in different faith based on how they are performing Yajna, Dana, and Tapa, which is also divided in three. And then if you see now in all these Yajna, Dana, and Tapa, wherever Krishna is mentioning that has to be done, that is in Sattva, it is always mentioned it is according to scriptures and without any desire, without any material desire. So that refers to the people who are following based on scriptures. So basically, what Arjuna is asking, there are people who are following something with not scriptural faith. What about them? So Krishna is indirectly saying that the results of them, that is, they are only in mode of ignorance and passion, and the result is abominable. So it has to be rejected, it has to be given up. Everyone should rise to mode of goodness. And then that is not the end. Mode of goodness is not the end. Then what is the end? The end is the transcendental. So how can one person who is in goodness transcend? Then he can transcend by understanding the concept of Om Tat Sat while performing Yajna, Dan, and Tapa.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Sorry, I forgot. Thank you.
No, that's fine. No issues. It was my also good revision.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Okay, fine. So last session, one Mataji had asked a question that if an employer is giving a salary to employee, and if he is misutilizing it, then what happens with the employer? So I had answered that the employer is paying the salary to the employee because of the work that employee is performing, and that's why whatever the transaction is there, that is complete. After he gets the salary, what thing that employee is doing, for that employer is not responsible. So I had a discussion with Radhika Vallabh, one senior devotee from Chowpatty, and so he said that yes, this understanding is right, but he gave an additional point to note that the employer can ensure, at least at the place of work, people are not engaged in sinful activities. So there may be some restrictions like no smoking or no alcohol or whatever, etc., etc. So if that can be ensured, then that will be like gross way the employer is making sure he is not allowing the employees to do any sinful activity in the premises. But after that, then what they do, that is completely their own use of their free will. So for that, employer cannot be held responsible. So whoever had asked this question, I don't know whether that Mataji is today present or not. I hope others can pass it on to the. Yes. Fine. So now let's move to chapter 18.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have a question, Prabhuji. Can I ask Prabhuji?
Yes, yes, please, please.
So it is not about this chapter, Prabhuji. It is about 15th chapter, 15th verse. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritir gnanam apohanam cha. And while explaining that, you had told us that in some way the propensity in us to be attracted towards something is because we have actually had the opportunity to either enjoy or associate with that particular thing in our previous lifetimes, births, and sort of that remains, and we are attracted towards that something like that, Prabhuji, you had said. So how can we understand that when people do crimes, Prabhuji? Like why Krishna doesn't help us help that soul to forget the kind of tendencies and propensities that person has had, and prevent that person to doing bad things in this lifetime?
Then that would go against the principle of free will. The concept of free will is itself in that the soul has to make his own choice to love and serve Krishna. That is the beginning of. So soul has to make that on his own. If Krishna is imposing that, then that will be like infiltrating the free will of that soul.
Got it.
So that is the first thing. Second thing is that I had explained in that verse that Krishna is actually very merciful, because matta snutir jnanam apohanam cha. So Krishna gives the remembrance, and Krishna gives the forgetfulness, and Krishna gives the remembrance, Krishna gives the knowledge, and Krishna also gives the forgetfulness. So now this is about what? So as Vishwanath Chandra Thakur explains, that Krishna gives remembrance of his past samskaras. Why? Because the soul itself is desiring like that. So desire is there of the soul, which is the prominent thing. And according to that desire, then Krishna is giving him remembrance. Like we see, if we want to hear a positive example, then we see in case of Gajendra. Gajendra had that desire, so Krishna gave him remembrance of his past life, and he could remember the verses. But here the living entity has desire of enjoyer and being a controller. So then Krishna is giving that kind of remembrance. And apart from that, then Krishna is also giving the knowledge how he can fulfill that desire. And at the same time, when that same soul, by some grace, if he comes in contact with some great soul and he takes up Krishna consciousness, then for that same person, Krishna will give forgetfulness of his past impressions. So whatever the conditioning that soul may be carrying, so Krishna gives a forgetfulness. So obviously, it is not in one day or something like that. After rigorous practice and observing the sincerity and seriousness, and based on when Krishna will desire, because Krishna is Swarat. So when he sees the sincere desire of the soul of getting away from this world, then he will give the forgetfulness of the past. So that is understanding about that.
Got you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Very good. Any other question? So shall we move to chapter 18?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So let me just put it. So welcome all of you to the final concluding chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 18, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation, or also named as Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. So this is the longest chapter in the Bhagavad Gita with 78 verses, and second longest the chapter 2, which had 72 verses, and then the third longest, anybody knows which one it is? Third longest, chapter 11, which has 55 verses. So let's begin with the flow of the chapter. So in this chapter, as it was in chapter 2, which was a brief introduction to what topics Krishna is going to speak. Similarly, this chapter has got the summary of what Krishna has spoken. That's why from verse number 1 to 12, Krishna is going to speak about Karma Yoga. 13 to 18 was Jnana Yoga. 19 to 40, the three moods of nature. 41 to 48, worshipping Krishna through one's work. 49 to 55, Jnana Yoga to pure devotional service. 56 to 66, there is surrender to Krishna. And 67 to 78, victory is assured. So we see that the first 12 verses which are talking about Karma Yoga means ultimately that type of activities by which one stays away from the bondage, which may come by doing any kind of karma. So when that karma is performed as a matter of Karma Yoga, connecting or linking with the Supreme, only then can one be free from the bondage. And this has been further explained philosophically that when the Karma Yogi receives the knowledge, only then actually he can be free from the bondage. And that's how the 5 factors of action are then explained in 13 to 18. And in the further part of Jnana, which is the modes of material nature, so it has been explained in the verse 19 to 40. And then again, worshipping Krishna through one's karma means Karma Yoga ultimately offered to Krishna. So that has been explained in 41 to 40. And then later on, Jnana Yoga to pure devotional service means what? That how Jnana Yoga can be offered to Krishna, or how can one progress from Jnana Yoga to pure devotional service. And finally, 56 onwards, the glory of Bhakti Yoga has been. So let's begin the first verse. Arjuna Uvacha
Arjuna Uvacha
Sannyasasya Mahabaho
Sannyasasya mahabaho
Tattvamichchami veditum
tattvamicchami
Yagasya cha Rishikesha Keshi Nishudana. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah. Arjuna said, O mighty armed one, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation, tyaga, and of the renunciation of the order of life, sannyasa, O killer of the Kesi demon, master of the senses.
Yes. So now, from where has this question sprang up? So if we go back in verse number 25 of the 17th chapter, so there Krishna has mentioned moksha kankshi. So those who are desirous of liberation. So that is generally indicated to the sannyasis. So that is moksha kankshi. And then here it is mentioned that without desiring something, one should perform these kinds of activities. And the purpose of that is to get free from material entanglement. So that is one thing. And then the second is in 12.11, Krishna has mentioned karma phala tyaga yatatma kuru atmavan. One has to give up the fruits of karma. So moksha kankshi generally, or the moksha kami, are generally those sannyasis who are karma sannyasis. Karma sannyasis means what? They give up karma. They give up activities. What kind of activities that we'll see just in a few minutes. And in the 12.11, it is mentioned for general people, when Krishna is expressing that how one can fix his mind upon me, and then if that person cannot do, then he can at least offer his intelligence. If not that, then he can offer some wealth or something like that. If nothing, then karma phala tyaga yatatma kuru atmavan. He can offer the fruits of his work. So in this way, Krishna is going one step below for accommodating people who somehow or other connect with him. So here, referring to these two things, Arjuna is asking that what is this actually sannyas and what is tyaga? And I would like to know what it is according to you and other people. Although they may be saying that these are the same, still I want to know and understand them differently. So in other words, Arjuna is trying to ask Krishna, this sannyasa and tyaga, are they different like stones and trees? If you see stones and trees, there's no similarity between them. They're completely different. So are they like that, or are they indicating to the same thing with different names like Kurus and Pandavas? So is it something like that, or they are completely different like stones and trees? So that, oh my Lord, I want to know. And if we carefully see, then in this particular verse, Arjuna is calling Krishna by three different names: Mahabaho, Rishikesha, and Keshi Nisudana. I think it is a quite unique verse wherein three names have been uttered in one verse. So why Rishikesha? Because Rishikesha means master of the senses. So I am a soul completely surrendered unto you. So that's why you are the master of my senses. And this doubt which has come up is nothing but produced by you alone within my intelligence. And this doubt is like a demon. So you are Keshi Nisudana, you are killer of demon like Keshi. So certainly I am very much confident that because you are Mahabaho, very great strength, you are very full of strength, and I am having no strength to dispel this doubt. So you can please dispel this doubt just like you killed the demon Keshi. So now you also kill this doubt within me. So that is the meaning behind usage of these three words. So now let's see what Krishna has to offer as an answer to this question of Arjuna. Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Kamyanam Karmanam Nyasam
काम्यानां
Kamyanam
कर्मणां
karmanam
न्यासं
nyasam
Nyasam Kavayo Viduh
संन्यासं कवयो
nyasam
विदुः
kavayo viduh
Sarva Karma Phala Tyagam
सर्वकर्मफलत्यागं
Sarvakarmaphalatyagam
Rahustyagam Vichakshanaah.
प्राहुस्त्यागं विचक्षणाः
Rahustyagam vichakshanaah.
Translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the giving up activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life or sannyasa. And giving up the results of all activities is what the wise call renunciation, tyaga. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So first of all, if we see, when Arjuna is asking this question, Krishna is not immediately answering his opinion, but rather he is giving the opinion of other great sages and learned men. So, Kamyanam Karmanam Nyasam, those who give up Kamya Karma, Sannyasam Kavayo Vidu, called as who's in renounced of life or sannyasa, that is called as sannyasa. So kamyanam karmanam nyasam. So what is this kamya karma? So primarily there are various types of karma, but primarily these three are mentioned: nitya karma, naimittika karma, kamya karma, and then there is nishiddha karma, which is to be avoided. So all these things are mentioned. So what is nitya karma? Anyone has, does any teacher has taken all these things before? Nitya karma, naimittik karma, and kamya karma. So nitya karma is that which one has to do on a daily basis, regular basis, and is mentioned in the scripture, and one has to do. It is like sandhya vandanam, or some kind of japa or puja to the one's own kula daivat, or any demigod worship which is prescribed in the tradition of their home. So that is nitya karma. And then the second is the naimittik karma, which includes the shodasha samskara, the 16 samskaras that has to be performed for the purification of the soul, right from the garbhadhana up to antyeshti. So that is the 16 samskaras, and some kind of festivals and so many other things which are not a regular part of the day, but naimittika, means sometimes occasional, which comes up. And then the third thing is the kamya karma, that those rituals performed for especially fulfilling a specific desire, and to be more specific, a material desire, like putra kameshti, wanting some good son or attainment of heaven, better life, like that. So that is the kamya karma. So nitya karma is the regular duties one has to perform as given in the scriptural injunctions. Naimittika karma are also mentioned in the scriptures and has to be done, but they don't have to be done daily basis. They are occasional. And then the kamya karma are those rituals which are performed for fulfilling one's own material desire. Now the point is, one has to do nitya karma and naimittika karma, but kamya karma is optional. If one does not do kamya karma, there is no sin to the soul. But if he forgets to do nitya karma or naimittika karma, then there are some, not sin, but there are some demerits of that. So the naimittika karma, like this, the 16 samskaras which are to be offered to the soul who has taken birth in the material world, if they are not performed, then the soul is deprived of that purification. So that is a great loss to the soul. After giving him the birth as human being, the ultimate aim is not sought. So that's why non-performance of nitya karma and naimittika karma is not not good. But if somebody doesn't do kamya karma, that is not a problem. But if somebody does kamya karma, then there will be entanglement certainly, because he is asking for some good son or something, or heavenly pleasures. So then he is increasing his duration in the material world. So we see that the conditioned soul is by nature attached to do activities of sense gratification, and that's why he has so many kamanas or kama vasanas, or the desires, and that's why he wants to do so many kamya karmas, so that he can fulfill his sense gratification. And because he is so much attached to his activities, so initially he is not told about anything else but only to reduce the kamya karma or to totally give up the kamya karma. And then when he has matured in that sense, that he is only performing nitya karma and naimittika karma, then he is also told that you have to even give up the fruits of nitya karma and naimittika karma. Not giving up the nitya and naimittika karma, but giving up the fruits of that. That's how. So those who are too attached, so they are part of karmis, and those who are completely detached. Why one will become detached is because gradually, after performing of so many karmas, he understands that again and again I am getting bound. So eventually, after many lifetimes, he gets this realization that better not to do any activity, and that's why he becomes detached from all kinds of activity. So that is a very dry renunciation, a dry detachment. So jnani kind of people. But devotional service is taken up by whom? Those who are in middle. That means those who are neither too attached for sense gratification, nor are too much dry in their renunciation. So only they can accept devotional service. And why is it like that? We'll come to know as we proceed ahead in these verses. So next verse explains this. There is a question over here. Just
why Krishna is focusing all these four only on Kama Karma?
the question is that why Krishna is focusing only on Kamya Karma amongst all of these? Because as I just now said, that initially the living entity is attached to do work, so he cannot tell to give up the fruits of all kinds of work. So there is a gradual, we have to understand it's a gradual thing. When we come to Krishna consciousness, that's a completely different issue altogether. But somebody is not in Krishna consciousness, if you tell him that you should not do kamya karma, you should also give up the fruits of all your nitya and naimittika karma, then he will completely fall flat. Then what is there for me? So not to give him too much of heavy dose. He is initially just told, first of all, that you give up kamya karmas, because that is causing bondage to you further. So then you stop doing that. And when he reaches that stage, then he is offered knowledge further that how this nitya and naimittika karma are also to be offered, or the results of that is to be offered. It's like that. Okay. So next verse. Yajyam doshavat iti eka
Jyam doshavat iti eke
karma prahurmanishina
Karma pravurmanishna
manishina
dhyana tapah karma
Yajna
Dana,
dana
tapa, karma,
karma
Natyajam iti chapare.
natyajam
Natyajyam
sapare.
iti chapare.
Translation.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as faulty. Yet other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned.
Yes. So now Krishna initially told about uh, what the great learned sages are saying, and now here he is giving two different opinions. One is what? Tyajam doshavad iti eke. Because these karma are full of dosha, karma doshavad. So that's why tyajam, one should give it up. That is the opinion of one class of people. And second class of people are saying, yajna dana tapa karma na tyajam iti chapare. Whereas others are saying that no, this yajna, dana and tapa are never to be given up. So these karma should be done, even if they may be with faults. So this is according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The first opinion is of the Sankhya philosophers, who say that everything, just like I was just mentioning in the discussion of previous verse, that all these karmas are full of doshas. So give it up, enough of this, because this is causing bondage. So just give it up. And whereas the other opinion is of the karma mimamsa philosophers. So they are mentioning, no, you cannot give it up. Yajna, dana and tapa should never be given up. You have to do it. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport mentions that how there are many activities in the Vedic literature which are subjects of contention. And he gives the example of animal sacrifice. That how the animal sacrifice, some class of people, they say that it should not be performed because it's violence, whereas others say, no, the animal is getting another new body, either immediately or after that he gets a human body. But then it is required sometimes. Whereas one class of people say, no, this is violence and it should be given. So always there are such, difference of opinion. And that's why Arjuna is also very much eager to know what is the opinion of Krishna, who is nothing but the compiler of the Vedanta. So his opinion will be upheld. So here we can see the question of Arjuna is not for himself, because we have previously discussed that in the 11th chapter itself, Arjuna is saying that all my illusion is gone. And then from 12th chapter, we see that he is asking questions. 12th chapter, he asked a question. 13th chapter, he asked a question. And then 14, 15, 16, they are subsequently the explanation of the question asked in the 13th chapter. Further explanation given by Krishna. And again, in the 17th chapter, he's asking a question. Now in 18th chapter, he's asking a question. All these questions are nothing but for people in general. He is himself very much clear about everything. But for the people in general to know, Arjuna is putting forth such questions. And that's why this is very much important. I think we missed out the purport of the first verse. Yes, we have missed it out. But anyways, in that you can please read at your leisure. It's very, very nice purport, wherein Srila Prabhupada is giving a synopsis of the first 6, second 6, and last 6 chapters, and mentioning that how the whole essence of Bhagavad Gita is performance of devotional service, And that is also the conclusion of this last 6 chapters. Yes. So the purport of this I already explained at this third verse, that animal sacrifice has been explained. So now let's see what Krishna finally is giving a conclusion in this next verse. Nishchayam shrudu me tatra
निश्चयं शृणु मे
तत्र
Yage bharat sattama
त्यागे
भारत
सत्तमा
सत्तमा
yago hi purusha vyagra
त्यागो हि
त्यागो
पुरुष
हि
व्याघ्र
idha sam prakirtiti titah.
त्रैविधा
Samprakeertitah.
Translation.
O best of the Bharatas, now hear my judgment about renunciation. O tiger among men, renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of 3 kinds.
Yes. And what are these 3 kinds?
Three modes of material nature.
Yes, correct. Please read the translation. I'm not.
Purport.
Point,
Although there are differences of opinion about renunciation, here the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna gives his judgment, which should be taken as final. After all, the Vedas are different laws given by the Lord. Here, the Lord is personally present and his word should be taken as final. The Lord says that the process of renunciation should be considered in terms of the modes of material nature in which it is performed.
Now, in next 2 verses, Krishna will speak about Yajna, Dana and Tapa. Like we saw in the previous verse, there are 2 opinions, and now Krishna will speak about his own opinion. Here Krishna has said that they are of 3 kinds, so 3 vidaha. But what about that Yajna, Dana and Tapa, whether it should be done or not, what is that, all these things? That will be understood in the next verse. Yajna, Dana, Tapa, Karma,
यज्ञदान तपः कर्म
कर्म
Rajyam, Karyameva tat.
अत्याज्यं
राज्यं
कार्यमेव च
कार्यमेव तत्
Yajyodanam tapaschaiva.
यज्ञोदानं तपश्चैव
तपश्चैव
Pavanani manishina.
पावनानि मनीषिणा.
Translation.
Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls.
Yes. So what does that mean? That these activities should never be given up. So they even purify the great souls. So we can see here in the purport, the Prabhupada explains that yogis should perform acts for the advancement of human society. So that means we have to see that how the conditioned souls can be offered such a structure by which they can gradually, or rather to be more specific, quickly elevate. So then that is a work of yogi, who is a very as Prabhupada is mentioning, yogis should perform acts for the advancement of human society. Now, which are these yogis? These are yogis who are perfected. So to be more specific, Bhakti yogi. And then Prabhupada mentioned that how this Nitya karma and Naimittika karma should never be given up. Whereas we saw that according to the opinion of Sankhya philosophers, that all the activities are doshavat, so that's why it should be given up. Whereas here, Krishna is mentioning, no, they should not be given up. Because we see that the activities of not just yajna dana tapa, but any activities, any prescribed duties in this material world are actually with some faults that Krishna also mentions. But one should not give up just because they are full of faults. So what has to be given up is the faulty consciousness of the soul. So faulty consciousness of the soul has to be given up so that he purifies or he gets purified and then no longer commits such acts by which he will again enter into the bondage. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport mentions that how, for example, marriage ceremony is considered to be one of the sacrifice. Then the question arises that should a sannyasi who is in renounced order of life and who has given up his family relations encourage the marriage ceremony? So nice question. That can a sannyasi encourage marriage ceremony? So the answer is yes, according to this verse. Because yajna, dana and tapa karma should not be given up. They are purifying. Pavanani manishina. How they are purifying? And if they are purifying, then why this person has given up? So for every different stage of consciousness, there is different understanding. So for a person who is on a lower level of consciousness, as Prabhupada is mentioning in this purport, sannyasi should never associate with women, but that does not mean that one who is in the lower stages of life, a young man, should not accept a wife in the marriage. So that means if the need is there for a young man to get purified through the marriage ceremony, then that is all right. He can accept it with this understanding of getting purified. And as Prabhupada is mentioning here, that sannyasis can encourage people to get married so that eventually they get purified and completely be detached from all kinds of sense gratification activities. So that's why Prabhupada concludes this purport that all prescribed sacrifices are meant for achieving the Supreme Lord. Therefore, in the lower stages, they should not be given up. Similarly, charity is for the purification of the heart. If charity is given to suitable persons, as described previously, it leads one to advanced spiritual life. So they are never to be given up. Yes. And then in the next verse, Krishna gives understanding. Etani apitu karmani.
एतानि अपि तु कर्माणि
Phalani cha.
सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलानि च
Kartavyani me partha.
कर्तव्यानि मे पार्थ
Chitam matamuttamam.
निश्चितं
निश्चितं
मतमुत्तमम्.
मतम् उत्तमम्.
Translation.
All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion.
So this is the final opinion of the Lord, that all activities should be performed without attachments. Sangam tyaktva phalani cha, or without any expectation of the result. Without attachment and without expecting result. While performing the activity, one may get attached to that activity, but Krishna is saying no, you should not be attached. That means what? If that while performing activity he is told to do another activity, then he should not say no, this activity only I will do because this is good. But no, he should not be attached to that activity and he should not expect any kind of result out of that. But it should be performed as a matter of duty. This is my final opinion. So this actually resolves all kinds of difficulties that may arise in the life of a mission soul. That he is, or even to great extent in life of a sadhaka, of a yogi, that he is performing his work without attachment and without expectation of results as a matter of duty, then he can really focus on his practice of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, when there is so much of expectation, then there is frustration. Why? Because expectations are always not fulfilled. We have always seen that karma, if it is fulfilled, then leads to lobha. If not fulfilled, leads to krodha. And before krodha comes frustration. That is always there. That's why without expectation of the result, work has to be done. And without attachment. So while performing the duties, there may be a case wherein person have to switch his duty due to certain reasons. So then one should be ready for that, because ultimately he has to see that somehow or other I have to earn money to keep my family. So if it is coming by this way or that way, it doesn't matter. One should not be attached to the work, but should be focused on performing his duty, and then more not focused on performing duty, but doing his work as a duty and being focused on practice of Krishna consciousness. So if that is done, then it is very, very easy. So yes, can you read please purport? It's not there on the slide.
Yes, Prabhuji, sorry. What did you say? Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
You said something just now.
There is purport is not put up on the slide. Can you please read the book?
Yeah, okay. Although all sacrifices are purifying, one should not expect any result by such performances. In other words, all sacrifices which are meant for material advancement in life should be given up. But sacrifices that purify one's existence and elevate one to the spiritual plane should not be stopped. Everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, it is said that any activity which leads to devotional service to the Lord should be accepted. This is the highest criterion of religion. A devotee of the Lord should accept any kind of work, sacrifice, or charity which will help him in the discharge of devotional service to the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So again, we see here in the words of Prabhupada that all sacrifices which are meant for material advancement in life should be given up. And what are they? Out of the three karmas that we discussed. What are the three types of karma that we discussed?
Nitya karma, Naimitika karma,
I
and
think the
Kama
topic is too
karma.
heavy.
Nitya karma, Naimittika karma,
And
Kamya karma.
Correct. So when Prabhupada is saying that all sacrifices which are meant for advancement in life should be given up, which are that? Of these
Kamya
three?
karma.
Correct. So Kamya karma has to be given up, but sacrifices that purify one's existence, that is the Nitya karma and Naimittik karma, should not be stopped. And
But the
to be more
results of the Nitya karma and Naimittika karma must be given up.
And to be more specific, then Prabhupada is mentioning that everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. So when we are practicing Krishna consciousness in our life, we should see that what is best which help me to practice my Krishna consciousness peacefully. That has to be done. And same thing when we are dealing with devotees or other people, that time also we have to encourage them in such a way by which they can take up to Krishna consciousness. So the pivot for making decisions is this Krishna consciousness. So like that. So that is the understanding behind this. And this Kamya karma has to be given up, whereas Nitya and Naimittik karma are helpful in gradual elevation and purification. So they should never be given up. Hare Krishna. So are there any questions? Okay, fine. So we'll come to a close for today's session and begin with the 7th verse from the next. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, I have
Hare
a question.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Prabhuji, I have one question.
Yes.
Prabhuji, it is not about the topics, but it is about the right way of studying and understanding, Prabhuji, like for the exam.
Okay.
What is your advice? How should we actually, like, once the topics are done, what are we supposed to do ideally? Like, matlab, go through every puppet, that's what we do, but what is a better way of doing things? Should we also listen to the lectures again while reading the puppets? What do you recommend?
If you are talking about the closed book exam, then
Both.
So for closed book exam, yeah. So for closed book exam, it is quite simple that when you read the question, where you are going to get the answer, it is marked in that question, in which verse and which chapter. So based on that, you can read that purport and find out the answer. Most of the questions are just you can just find it out in the purport itself. You don't have to much scratch your head to answer those. So that way you can write it down in one notebook or something like that, all the questions. Out of those questions, some will come, and then I think there is I'll just check with the DVRV team whether they will also put some questions out of those questions. I don't know. Sometimes they put it's there.
50%.
Okay, so 80% are from the handbook, which is given to all of you, and 20% would be from the purports. So it will. So best is that if you all read the purports as soon as the class is over, before we go to the next session, so that something is there, and to recollect again, then you will have to read it again. That
What
is
is
there.
your open book, Prabhuji?
Sorry.
What is your recommendation for open book, Prabhuji? What is a good way of?
Open book actually means what I follow in my or what I followed when I was attending these courses is I would take some notes while hearing the classes, and purports are always there with us, and then discussions with other devotees, other participant devotees. So by these three things, I would solve my open.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Pranam, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.